Today we're talking about innovation, and we're really here to unpack what it is, what contributes to innovation, what holds it back, and align on common language. Before we jump into it, I want to just invite Nicole to share your experience related to innovation up front.
It continually comes up in my life because I have spent not just my career, but I think my whole life devoted to art and innovation. And art and innovation are really similar. They have a similar energy. They have similar obstacles. There's a lot of commonalities between artists and innovators that I didn't realize until I had done both, until I had invested in both. There's a lot of discussion around innovation, the power of innovation, the necessity of innovation, the individuals who are innovators, how they're celebrated and elevated, even worshiped. The technology that represents innovation is also elevated and worshiped, right? So this is a huge value that we have in modernity. Innovation is about having an expansive application that is social and cultural. And I think often is mistaken that it only is in technology. Innovation doesn't only exist in technology. It tends to have that application now in our time, but it's not limited to technology.
Yeah, my vantage point on innovation is so different from yours. And so I'm really grateful we both have these unique lenses we're looking through. Mine is as an employee of all these companies in the tech space who define their core values as wanting to be innovative, whether that's descriptive or prescriptive, but then the cultural fabric is so wildly obstructive to true innovation. My personal perspective on what can I bring to this conversation as well as learn from this conversation is aligning on common language and understanding how our culture either feeds into, you talked about kind of worshiping the spirit of innovation, but what is it really? Because I think we're calling a lot of things that aren't actually innovation.
Invention is not innovation. Improvement, creativity, change, progress, even original thinking, these are not innovation. Now, innovation involves these things. I think it's really important to realize that it's one of the most complex human endeavors is innovation. And it involves an integration of a lot of different qualities, elements, and areas of humanity and development.
And I don't think we actually create environments where people who have the desire to bring innovative qualities and bring innovation to life can flourish. I think we hold ourselves back in a lot of ways. And so my 2 cents as a member of many corporate experiences who have core values related to innovation, I found myself spun up in the ideals around innovation, but the very unsubstantiated lack of any type of true circumstance or environment that would invite, reward, or cultivate any type of truly innovative outcomes. So we want to first align on what do we mean by innovation. We've already heard a little bit about what it's not. And so before we get any further in this conversation, let's talk about the qualities that define innovation.
How can you think beyond the boundaries or the limits or the standards of any particular area that you're working in and put pressure on those limitations in order to see what is possible? So there are a lot of qualities that are involved: creative thinking, critical thinking, to be able to play, right? Playfulness, exploration, a high tolerance for risk. You have a high tolerance for uncertainty and problem solving. What true innovation is doing is connecting a lot of dots. And one, being able to identify a problem clearly in order to use all of the resources and to connect all the dots. And then all of these skills are simultaneously employed in order to come to something altogether new. And I think a key distinction around innovation compared to like invention, it's not just the thing itself, but it's the application into humanity. So it's not just, oh, here's this one thing that I'm inventing on the side without any kind of goal to have it impact humanity at large or society. There's all of these qualities, and we've only named a few. Like I don't intend to be complete in any way, but just there's some of these qualities that are difficult and necessary in order to come to true innovation.
Many of the things that you named around putting pressure on limitations, not something a business is overly excited about. Having a high tolerance for risk and uncertainty, pretty much the worst thing for a business, right? They want as much certainty as possible. Connecting dots, we've talked about this a lot in other conversations about how working across many domains and industries and types of roles allows an expansive thinking, unlike in a singular domain. And then you talked about this way that it not only integrates in holistic thinking, but also is birthed into the world in terms of real life application. Maybe a couple other qualities that we didn't mention are the speed that I've heard you previously surface in relation to innovation and the part of playing the fool. And these sort of wrap into some of the types that we see as prevalent types within the Enneagram or within business constructs that we can learn from. But ultimately, what I'm after is how do we create a culture for innovation?
There's a quickness of mind, and there's a less attachment to whatever it is now that exists. I don't think that, innovation always happens quickly. It often happens quite slow.
So what you're saying about speed is that it's more about adaptability, and I think being less fixed about what you're after and speed for the sake of speed when we think about creating products and getting them to market.
To be innovative and to have an innovative mindset where you're utilizing all of these qualities at the same time in order to move a culture, a society, a system forward. And so I think that's a key distinction around innovation as well, is that it's not just disrupting a model. It doesn't happen just in a moment in an isolated place. There's an ability to look at all of the constructs and figure out, okay, how does this particular thing get us here or there or somewhere else that is in context of what the obstacles and problems are right now? That's a complicated endeavor.
When you're talking about, it's not applying the ideals of innovation to things we can already see in front of us. And I think this is the way that a lot of companies are applying the concept of innovation to many very fixed things that already exist. But when you find a company or an idea or a person that's really innovative, they have backtracked all the way back to a true problem and a need that the world probably has never experienced before or never in this way. And that's what's generating a lot of the fuel for them to think in entirely new ways that don't just disrupt or create similar products to what we've already seen, but revolutionize.
In whatever role we play, we can be more innovative than others doing the same thing. And that what the innovation is how expansively are you applying it in ways that don't already exist.
Let's get into what holds it back. So, I mean, I've seen this, as I've already shared, part of my experience is that there's a desire to be innovative. I think there's a misunderstanding and a lack of knowledge about what truly is innovative, which we've just laid out. But then there's a lot of things standing in the way. From your perspective, what are some of those things?
I'd say the two things that are most consistent that get in the way of innovation and also get in the way of excellence is a commitment to comfort and a commitment to certainty. These are the two things that humans continually, less consciously, are overly committed to. There's a returning to comfort and there's a returning to certainty. And it's because of our anxiety levels. It's because of all the things, right? Even if we have no anxiety at all, humans prefer comfort. And everything that innovation requires, and most excellence, because excellence in these terms is a part of growth and development, evolution or revolution, things that are significantly making humanity better. Those require enormous amount of energy, disruption, pain, and suffering. Honestly, like as an innovator, and it's taken me a very long time to locate myself there, because I work with so many intelligent people and talented people. The source of my suffering is being able to see things that others cannot see, to be able to understand what our time needs in a very essential way, and to have an ability to construct a solution, and that solution being rejected because what it demands of humanity is to grow and to evolve, which we fundamentally resist. And so that makes the innovator completely just in so much pain, because here we are. And I can speak for myself. Like, I really believe that some of the constructs and frameworks and particular intelligence that I have learned to apply in very new ways is a huge solution to our time. And I have been at this at least for 10 years, which is before people were talking about it. I think now it's being discussed more and more. But even now, as it's being discussed and studied and validated, even now, decision makers and leaders are not seeing it as essential work, meaning the essential work of evolving human systems and evolving the systems that demand humanity to perform in certain ways that don't work. And it's a complex thing to solve, right? Because human systems are complicated. So it requires actual innovation in order to solve these problems, because all of the systems and structures of the current status quo and of the past are no longer working. So yeah, I think that what gets in the way is primarily humans' commitment to comfort and to certainty.
The things that hold it back within organizations that I've been a part of or worked as a consultant within, the way it shows up is over-indexing on processes that have always been in place because you can rely on them and they're steadfast and you know what the outcome will be, which absolutely expels your high performers who want to innovate. I mean, red tape is an easy way to think about big companies with slow processes. And it's not, again, back to the speed thing as much as it is the lack of willingness to try new things and evolve and experiment. And then lack of willing to take risks. I mean, this is a huge one that people, back to being rooted in certainty, are willing to accept substandard performance if they feel that there's some kind of certainty. There's a lot of busy work, I think, that doesn't actually allow people to be free thinkers. Like, everything that we're learning and the duties of our jobs are very prescriptive. They're very mandated. And there's not a lot of time to just take a walk around the block or sit back in your chair or connect with people you wouldn't normally connect with. And then playfulness. I built a snowman for the first time about a week ago. Yes, it's snowing in March in the Midwest. And I could not believe like the sense of fun that my husband and I had pulling all kinds of different produce out of the refrigerator and figuring out how to make ears out of onions. And point is, play is important. And allowing your mind to think in this kind of childlike state, to imagine what's possible that you've never seen before, brings something out in you. And I've been playing with this concept ever since we talked about the type 7 and their willingness to play the fool and experiment and do things that seem absolutely ridiculous, but can lead us to new outcomes and new truths. And so what holds it back? I think in a corporate context, it's absolutely over-indexing towards the way it's always been, the policies and procedures, the amount of work that's hitting your desk and the urgency to complete it, which totally eliminates the opportunity to play, investigate, think differently, slow down to speed up, or have the agility and adaptability to not be so fixed to the way it's always been done. And so it's self-sabotage, absolutely.
Another key thing that comes to mind in terms of the things that get in the way is that we have this deep hypocrisy of how culturally, socially, we elevate the results of innovation, but we're not willing to invest in the process of innovation, right? So these are very invisible, unproductive places. And what I mean by unproductive is I believe they're highly productive, but they're not counted as productive in our culture because how we measure productivity is external, through external visible measurements. But the process of innovation requires a certain kind of mind. It requires a certain kind of person. And it requires people to engage their environment and their work in a particular way. And currently our organizations and our companies don't reward that or even really encourage it.
I'm going to ask the question, why does it matter? And that question encompasses within it, what is the cost of not being more innovative and inviting more of the environment that is conducive, the circumstances that allow people to flex these innovative qualities?
We're going to have to understand innovation as a process, as a way of thinking, as a way of engaging our work, and as a way of engaging our world. Not with the end result of a particular product. It's who we are. And what will that cost us in the sense of change, but what are also not only wild benefits, but essential to the survival of humanity in the future, right? And this is something that, innovators see. Innovators have a quality of vision. We're able to see the future and what we will be up against and what will be useful. And so how can we, approach innovation in terms of a philosophy, in terms of a mindset, in terms of a quality of being, instead of being limited to seeing innovation as our, iPhones and, our chatbots, right, et cetera. That's not enough.
I'm interested in the costs of having so many wide bodies of employee bases who are desiring innovation, want to bring these skills, qualities, and attributes to life within their organizations, and are being shut down at every turn because of the overcommitment to certainty and comfort that we talked about earlier, and how that's harming our world. And so this conversation for me is to bring common language about what innovation is and what it's not, and to invite a discussion about the things that we're doing every day that actually harm the people who are teaching us how to think differently and think outside the box. Because, I've had personal experiences. I know it's been a large part of your personal experience that when you have new ideas that challenge the status quo in revolutionary ways, it is not easy to be heard, right? And so it's much easier to dismiss those things and go along with the status quo, and everyone who needs a paycheck will stay there. And this is where you get the term kind of company worker. And I think it's actually diminishing the opportunity for people to grow and develop those skills and capabilities within themselves in the workforce. And the short-sightedness aspect of it is that companies believe that this is some sort of prevention strategy. It's keeping them safe because they think harness certainty, right? And the inverse is true, that this is actually keeping companies from being able to unleash and unlock truly new ideas, or I'm even okay with new applications of existing ideas, right? Just to kind of like merge the two together and realize the gap is very vast right now. I'll take a little bit of it if we can just open our minds to not automatically dismissing someone with a crazy idea.
Putting leaders to the task, like challenging that, like we can no longer depend on conformity or certainty or comfort. One of the things that we can do now to round out the conversation is, what are the resources that we have in terms of the Enneagram framework in the people around us to actually help us move more towards innovation and becoming a more innovative people. All 9 types can bring their own particular qualities to the innovation conversation. But 7, 8, and 5, I think, have particular qualities that are often resisted in companies in this way.
Yeah, we talked about fives with their ability to investigate, but then also how sevens and eights have the energy to bring that knowledge to life and how these are complementary states. And then with seven, I really like the freedom to play and not become overly attached to a single idea, which is exactly what lends its way to the adaptability and resiliency and welcoming the change that indicates speed, and speed defined as not getting stuck so much, which fives can also accidentally get stuck. And then I love with eights, we think of them being able to challenge systems and constructs and press against. So many times, I know this is part of your experience, there's a dismissal, right? Like, oh, this person has this big ideal, and it's just like so much energy to even engage because they're bringing so much energy to the conversation, and we need these people. And so if you've made it to this point in listening and you're interested about how to close the gap between a culture that preaches innovation but doesn't actually lend its way to facilitating an opportunity to practice innovation, there's people who already work in all of these organizations and companies and family structures and all of the places who are naturally predisposed to bring innovation to life just by the very nature of how they see the world and operate in it, whether it's their investigative nature, their ability to express their freedom and creativity, or to think about things in challenging new ways and have the energy to confront them. And so this is where we can bring, I would call it a more scientific lens to not just being like, okay, let's, rebuild the culture, but actually let's start from the places where people have a natural disposition and let's get out of their way. I think that's my vote here is let's get out of their way and stop limiting it and see what's possible. So this is just the beginning of the conversation about innovation when it comes to the way that we view innovation and the opportunity within a corporate climate. And so given the current economic climate and the work that we do, we feel it's even more important to really harness the opportunities that innovation leads for not only saving money, but making money and winning. And that's not the reason why. That's certainly an outcome. But if you're interested in exploring this conversation in further detail, continue listening. We have another episode based on the work that we do and how it relates to the current climate and really continues to build on what we've laid here as a groundwork from an innovative perspective. Thanks for joining us in this conversation. We would love to hear from you. You can find a link to our LinkedIn in our show notes. And if you follow us, you'll get notifications about that next episode.